Eala starts Asian swing against Falei at Jingshan Open. Alexandra Alex. Eala begins her Asian swing as the number 1 seed against Alyona Falei of Belarus at the WTA 125 Jingshan Open in China Monday. Game time is at 10 a.m. Manila time, with the WTA number 57 Ms. Eala looking to weave her magic anew in Asia with multiple stops closer to home after a productive campaign in the Americas. Ms. Eala, 20, will be up against a fellow teen rising star in the 21-year-old Ms. Falei, who's way behind the world rankings at number 323. The Filipina Pride also has a week-long break plus an extra motivation of short homecoming to bank on in taking care of business for a quick seat in the round of 16. That's on top of an all-time momentum from the United States, Mexico, and Brazil marked by 7 straight wins and a breakthrough WTA title. After becoming the first Filipina winner in any Grand Slam, U.S. Open, main draw, Ms. Eala also brought home the first WTA title ever for Philippine tennis by reigning supreme in the WTA 125 Guadalajara Open in Mexico with 5 straight wins. She scored 2 more wins in the WTA 250 São Paulo Open in Brazil, but exited in the quarterfinals against fellow Southeast Asian star Janice Jen of Indonesia. Now up for an Asian swing that will also include stops in the WTA 125 Suzhou Open on September 29th to October 5th, and the Hong Kong Open on October 27th to November 2nd. Ms. Eala is hoping to barge into the top 50 for the first time ever. Her previous career high is at number 56 following a runner-up finish in the Eastbourne Open in England. John Bryan Yulande. The September skies above Jingshan were painted in soft shades of amber and pearl. Lanterns flickered faintly outside the tournament grounds, their delicate glow mixing with the early evening haze, as if the city itself wished to welcome tennis back into its heart. The Jingshan Open, tucked against the backdrop of rolling green hills and temples that had watched centuries pass, was not merely another stop on the Asian swing. It was a threshold, a place where young players came not only to prove themselves, but to test the resilience of their spirit against the weight of expectation. For Alexandra Eala, known to most simply as Eala, this was more than an opening round. It was the beginning of something longer, sharper, more relentless, the Asian swing that would shape her year. Opposite her stood Falei, a local favorite whose name carried echoes of patience and persistence, whose roots in the Chinese tennis scene ran as deep as the old trees surrounding the venue. The two players had never met before, but that was almost irrelevant. Every match in Asia felt like a meeting with history. The courts were woven with stories of breakthrough champions and the ghosts of near misses. To step onto them was to inherit that legacy for a fleeting hour. The day began quietly for Eala. In her hotel room, the morning light cut a clean stripe across the floor, falling on her racket bag like a blessing or a warning. She laced her shoes with the ritual precision of someone who knew that even the smallest gesture before a match could decide the outcome. For her, the Asian swing was not simply a series of matches. It was a test of endurance across different cultures, climates, and pressures. The Jingshan Open was her first checkpoint. Against Falei, she faced both an opponent and an entire stadium whispering the name of their own. The energy of a home crowd could be a storm, and she would have to learn not just to survive it, but to redirect it. By the time she walked through the players' tunnel, the air had thickened. Fans waved flags stitched in red and gold, chanting Falei's name in rising waves. The sound pressed down like a tide, testing her composure. Yet, beneath the noise, Eala found calm in the familiar bounce of the ball against her strings. When the chair umpire called, "Ready? Play," silence briefly swept over the stands, an almost sacred stillness before the storm. Then came the first serve. Eala's arm swung in a clean arc, the ball skimming through air heavy with anticipation. Falei returned with the confidence of someone used to these courts, her movement fluid, the crowd erupting with every strike. But this was where Eala thrived, in the friction between expectation and resistance. The first set unfolded like a painting brushed in fast strokes, points blending into rallies, rallies dissolving into gasps. Falei fed off the crowd, her footwork sparking with energy, her shots cutting sharp angles. Eala answered with resilience, her forehand carving through rallies, her backhand steady as stone. At 4-4, the tension crested. Every shot was cheered or groaned over. The line between players and spectators blurred. It felt like the entire stadium was playing the match. Yet in the eye of the storm, Eala's breathing slowed. She focused not on the roars but on the rhythm of the ball, the geometry of the court. 2 games later, she snatched the set, 6-4. No fist pump, no yell, only a quiet nod, as though she were telling herself, "This is only the beginning." But beginnings are deceptive. The second set brought something else entirely. Falei surged, buoyed by the refusal of her fans to let her fade. She found new gears in her serve, her returns pressing Eala into uncomfortable corners. Momentum shifted like wind through the pines. Suddenly it was Falei who claimed the set, 6-3, her name echoing in the air like a drumbeat. For Eala, this was the moment of reckoning. She sat on her bench, towel draped across her shoulders, staring not at the scoreboard but at the court itself. The Asian swing was often less about talent than about how well one carried fatigue, how deeply one could mine resilience when the body whispered for rest. She knew this. Still, knowing did not make the task easier. The final set became a kind of meditation. Every rally stretched time, every point pulling both players into a realm where only movement and instinct mattered. The crowd's shouts grew into thunder, but Eala's mind turned inward. She remembered the streets of Manila where her journey began, the countless hours spent chasing balls under the tropical sun, her family's unwavering support. She remembered, too, the disappointments, the near misses that taught her that tennis was as much about patience as it was about power. Those memories steadied her. She began constructing her points like a builder laying stone upon stone, each shot not rushed but placed. She served wide, then carved down the line. She absorbed Falei's aggression and turned it back like a mirror. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the momentum shifted again. At 5-3, serving for the match, Eala paused before her toss. The world felt suspended, the crowd restless in its anticipation. She let the ball rise, struck cleanly, and watched it skid past Falei's reach. Game, set, match, Eala. There was no explosion of celebration, just a quiet, composed acknowledgement. She walked to the net, shook hands with Falei, and lifted her eyes briefly to the crowd. Their applause was polite, almost reluctant, but she understood. It was not personal, but protective of their own. That, too, was part of the journey. As she left the court, Eala felt the weight of both victory and the path ahead. The Asian swing was only beginning. Beyond Jingshan lay more battles, each with its own climate, its own crowd, its own test of will. Yet tonight, as lanterns flickered once more outside the grounds, she had passed the first gate. And sometimes, in the long odyssey of a season, the first gate makes all the difference.